This is going to be the most exciting video of our Jackson series, and that is the bank war. This all boils down to sectionalism, so bear with me here for a second, because in the West, there is a distrust of national banks. And remember, Jackson is a Westerner. He doesn't really trust the national banks. Why don't they trust the banks? Because they feel that the national bank is simply a tool of the northern elites, because the loans that are given out by the national bank are going mostly to help those industrialists up in the north. So in the West, they think that that stable money supply that's created by a national bank, the loans and the economic growth is all there to go help the North. So Westerners don't really trust the bank, but there are some benefits. And for example, the boss of the national bank, the president, Nicholas Biddle, is going to argue that the bank helps to grow the economy, provides a stable monetary system, and overall provides a place for the government to store all of its tax revenue. And all that's true, but don't tell that to Jackson and those common men, because they distrust the bank. This becomes an election issue in 1832, because even though the charter for the national bank wasn't up until 1836, the president, Nicholas Biddle, had asked for it to be renewed in 1831, and then it became this, or 1832, and then it became this big argument: do we renew the national bank or not? Jackson, who's currently in office in 31 and 32, argues that they should kill the national bank, and he overwhelmingly wins, not necessarily because of the bank issue, but that's what he understands it as. So he wins the election and decides to kill the national bank. What does he do with all the money that's in the national bank? Well, he sends it out to pet banks. In other words, state banks, mostly in his southern and western supporter states. Now, this seems a pretty big scandal, and there's a whole lot more that goes into it that's going to just bore you to tears. So the important thing is that the economy does slow down, but it's out in those western territories that this matters, because of all of that, the fact that there is no one national bank regulating the monetary supply. Each bank now in those state banks is sort of issuing its own funds and its own loans and its own interest rates, which means that it's really unregulated. But that means it's easier to get a loan out in those western states, which means all of those plantation owners in the South that want to expand into the West can now get cheap land, and they're expanding slavery into those western territories, which has now been cleared up by the removal of the Native Americans there.